Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Am's Untitled Podcast. I'm Am, and if you've just stumbled across this podcast, it's very nice to meet you. I started this podcast 2 months ago now. Yeah, I can't believe it. It's been 2 months already. And yeah, it was just basically because I'm somebody who really enjoys rambling about my favorite things, and I'm almost certain that there are definitely people out there like me that enjoy rambling about their favorite things. And actually, um, I wasn't actually a big podcast listener until maybe end of last year, early this year, and I really enjoy podcasts. And it kind of inspired me to start my own in a sense because I was just like, yeah, that's something I could do. That seems fun. And for the time being, it's just a hobby. It's not a job, I promise. This is just something I do for fun. And I've also got something else to share with you guys. If you don't follow me on Instagram, follow me. It's at Am's Untitled Podcast. I always let you guys know when the podcast goes up and where it goes up. So as you know, I've been doing this for Spotify, but then I kind of realized that it would be some people don't actually use Spotify, do they? Like, let's be honest, some people are like more into Apple Music and stuff. So I thought, what's like a universal platform that a lot of people use? And then the YouTube thing came to mind, and I was like, huh, maybe I should start my own YouTube channel and all the podcasts that I upload on Spotify, I might as well just upload on there as well. So that's what I've decided to do. So I now have a YouTube channel. It is at Am's Untitled Podcast. And every single episode that I've done so far, I spent the last 2 days uploading them onto YouTube. So they're all available for you to view, I guess. So go and check them out. If you prefer to listen on YouTube, then go straight there. Otherwise, it will just be streaming on Spotify as normal. I've decided that I'll upload it first to Spotify and then upload it to YouTube. I will try and do it in the same day, but in case I forget, I'll let you guys know on my Instagram page when it goes up on both, when it's available to stream on both. So yeah, that's just all from me at the beginning. Let's get on to this. So in this episode, I'm going to be reviewing the second to last episode of the Percy Jackson series. I'm actually quite upset because I've been really enjoying doing this, and now I've only got one episode left, and that means I can go back to the books, so I shouldn't be complaining. But yeah, it just made me kind of sad that I was like, oh my god, I've been doing this for 2 months and I've done every single episode so far. Not on time, as you know, which is weird for me because I'm somebody that likes to be quite punctual with everything. But yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know this is the second to last episode of this. And then I'm going to be moving back onto the books, the original 5 books, and I think I'm going to do Chalice of the Gods as well. So the first 6 books that are out, and then eventually when Wrath of the Triple Goddess comes out, I will review that. But I'm not going to get my copy till September, which is killing me a little bit. But yeah, I have to wait. I have to be patient, and Rick's work is always worth waiting for. So let's get on to the episode then. I've been already talking for 3 minutes about everything that's not to do with the episode. So let's go for it. Okay. So the opening of scene of the episode is where Percy meets Procrustes in a bed store. And this is quite similar to the books, I believe. I think they've changed the scene just slightly, but from what I can remember of the book, which is not very much at this point in time, I don't remember much of the second half of the book. But yeah, and if you don't know who Procrustes is, he's also a son of Poseidon, and he's the murderer of travelers. So yeah, he not a good guy, and he's also got a bee in a bonnet with his dad. But we'll go into that a little bit later on. And then he sort of says to Percy about the bed store, and Percy just says, like, I know who you are. And he makes a comment about his mom saying, oh, are you missing her? And it's already suggesting to the audience that he knows who Percy is, and it's quite obvious that Percy knows who he is as well. Now, I'm not sure in the book if he knows who he is straight away or not. I'm not sure. They have changed it a little bit. Like I said, when I go back and read the book, I'll make proper comparisons because I'll have the notes for the episode and the book in front of me. So I'll be able to draw back comparisons. But yeah. And then he says to him, I know that the beds are a trap. And that's exactly how you murder people. You stretch them out until the bones pop, essentially. And he knows that there's a secret passage to the Underworld and that Procrustes was left to guard it. But Percy really kindly asks him, he says, but I need you to let me through. And Procrustes just carries on talking about the beds, and Percy's like, you know what, I'm really not interested, like I really don't care about this. And like Procrustes like sort of comes up to him and like touches his shoulders, and like Percy flinches. And it's like, in the book Percy doesn't really get scared of much, but for some reason I think this makes him a little bit uncomfortable. I think it's because he knows that he's also a son of Poseidon. And my hands, oh my god, sorry. I used sorry, just on a side note, let's track away from the episode a second. I used a curl cream in my hair today because I don't normally because I have wavy hair, I've never actually styled my wavy hair. I'm so used to straightening it or curling it, and I thought like it would be a better way for me to style my natural look using curl cream. And now the curl cream is all over my hands. I've washed my hands so many times that it still feels a bit sticky. But yeah, sorry. Come on, let's go back to the scene. Side note, I wish I could show you guys because I don't think I did it right because I used the scrunching technique and I don't think that that works for my hair. It looks okay, don't get me wrong, but I don't know. I think I'll have to practice doing it a few times before I get it right. Anyway, let's go back to what I was talking about. And then this is where the scene slightly changes a little bit from the books because Annabeth, she's got her invisibility cap on and she pushes Procrustes onto the bed and it traps him, which I think is completely different from the books because from what I can remember in that scene, it's Grover and Annabeth that get pushed onto the beds and trapped by Procrustes, and then I think Percy makes a deal or something with Procrustes. I'm not sure. I have to go back and check that bit for the books. And it's so sweet because she goes to Percy and she checks in with him like, "Are you okay?" Oh, Perciveth. Guys, these two are literally going to be the death of me. It's just when they do little things like that. Like, I always say, like, for them, it's not about the big moments, but it's about the small moments, like just checking in with each other, like reassuring each other. It's so sweet. I bet people who are listening to my podcast think I'm absolutely mental. They're like, "Oh my god, this girl gets excited over nothing." This makes me seem like such a diehard, like romantic, but I'm genuinely not. I don't know, it's just these two that bring out a different side of me, but whatever. Let's move on. And then, Procrustes tells Percy, you won't be able to save her. And Annabeth intervenes like almost straight away. And she's like, "You're lucky we're letting you keep your head." Like, in other words, just stop talking, basically. And I love that supportive side. And I love that this show has brought more of a vulnerability to Annabeth and to Percy. Because I think I mentioned this like a few episodes ago, but in the book, Percy doesn't really talk to anyone about his feelings for some reason because the books are written in his perspective. Like, if you look at the dialogue, there isn't really much. And it's so nice, like, obviously in the show, like, they have to tell the story from all the characters' perspectives. So yeah, I just think it's nice that they've put that into the show. And it's so sweet. Grover comes in and he says, "It's it over," and the scene ends. And then it cuts to the kids finding a passageway to the underworld, and it's behind an old door, which I think is the same as the books, but I'm not necessarily sure. And poor Grover, like he starts to feel like really anxious, and Annabeth gives him like this squeezy ball just so he can like I don't know, like take out his anxiety, I guess. And then Percy shows them the pearls that were given to him by the date raid and tells them, these are our tickets out. Like, this is how we can get out of the underworld unharmed. And Annabeth says to him, no one's turning back unless we all come back. And then Preston like just casually shouts from out of the scene, like nobody comes back. And she's like, "Don't make me come back out there." Yeah, I love that. I love that sassy side of her. It's so funny. And it's that, like I said, the show's very good at making moments of tension and then giving you a bit of comedic relief. So I think that was one of those moments. Very subtle, but very effective, I think. And then they each take a pill, and Annabeth literally nudges Percy, and she's like, "Come on, let's go get your mom," sort of thing. So to me, that is like shows that she doesn't even care about finding the Master Bolt anymore, completing the quest. Like, it's almost like Percy's goal is to find his mom, and that goal has become her goal as well. Oh, guys, the Perciveth thing is so cute. Like, I can't take it. There's too much cuteness going on there. I was talking to this to a friend, and I said, like, we're both big fans of Percy Jackson. And I said to her, like, I'm like this now. Like, I can't imagine, like, in future seasons what I'm going to be like. And I say this all the time on the podcast as well. I was just like, I get so excited now. Like, when the big moments come, I'm just like, I'm going to pass out. Like, I'm literally going to have a heart attack. But it's okay. It's okay. It's good. We've still got a long way to go before then. I'll be much older by then, so hopefully I'll learn to control it. Anyway, then what I really like is they show a lot of flashbacks in this episode. So the first flashback that they show is young Percy and Sally in the car. I think just before she's going to drop him off to a new school. And she says that the film dialogue, we're not in Kansas anymore. And obviously, young Percy doesn't have a clue what that means. Now, I didn't understand why they put that line in there until the next scene, but I'll come back into that. And young Percy, he's so adamant he doesn't want to go, and it just shows that he's always been stubborn. Very big part of his character as well. And she tells him, you were really lucky to get in. Like, this is the best program for children with learning difficulties. Like, you should be happy considering you've been kicked out all your other schools, essentially. And he's still saying, I'm not going. And she says that sometimes that I have to make choices for you that you don't understand. And for me, it just shows like from the beginning, she's always tried to do what's best for him. And it must be so hard for her as a mother. Like, I can't imagine how she must feel. Like, she has to put her son in these situations where he's probably hating her for what she's doing, but she's only doing it because she cares. And, it brings back this idea of her being the whole backbone of the season. And I think she's literally the reason why Percy is the man that he is today. He's not really much like his godly side of the family. He's more of a Sally Jackson. And I love that because she's given him these morals, these stories, like, this, what would you call it? Like, a moral compass essentially of how you should be behaving. And yeah, I really like that scene. It's so powerful. And then she tries to take him out the car and he locks the door. It's so funny. And eventually she says, this isn't a negotiation. Like, you're going whether you like it or not. And young Percy eventually gives in. I felt sorry for him. I'm not gonna lie, but then I can also see it from Sally Jackson's perspective as well. It must be really difficult for her. Then it cuts back to the present moment where the trio are finally in the underworld. And Percy says that same line, we're not in Kansas anymore. And, I just love that he's still remembering, like, he's still trying to remember the good parts of his mom throughout this whole thing. I think that's the only thing that's, like, keeping him going because he's so worried about her. He's trying to think about the good memories, I guess. So wholesome. Their relationship is so wholesome. And then, Annabeth, she tells him to focus. She goes, we left Kansas like 4 days ago. But obviously, the reason why she says it like that is A, she doesn't understand the reference because she'd never seen any movies. And also, like, she's not going to get that because that's a joke between a mother and a son. But yeah, they're literally soulmates. Like, nobody can tell me otherwise. Like, there is nobody else. Like, I get this question a lot where people are like, okay, so if Percy didn't end up with Annabeth, like, who would he end up with? Because he's had a lot of girls and boys throwing themselves at him. Well, let's see if I can name a few of them. So there was Calypso, then there was Raina, then there was Nico at one point. And who's the other girl? Rachel Elizabeth Dare. Yeah. So there was a lot. There was a lot of. He had like a lot of girls like coming at him in all the books. That's something you should read. Percy. I said this in the last episode where we were talking about Riz. Percy has the highest amount of Riz I've ever seen in my life. Like, he ropes people like anything. But yeah, I think that if he wasn't with Annabeth, I just don't think he'd be with anybody. I don't think that there's anybody who could complete him the way that she does. Oh my god, I sound like such a romantic, honestly. It's just with these two. I swear I don't read romance in general. It's just these two. They bring that soft side out of me, let's just put it like that. And Grover, he's getting more and more anxious, so he keeps squeezing the ball. And he says, oh, is that who I think it is? And Annabeth says, yeah, that's Cheiron, the boatman who takes souls across the river Styx towards the main gate of the underworld where they start their journey into the next life. And it's so cute. Annabeth like confiscates the ball off Grover. Cute little brother and sister moment. Do you know what? I really hope that the show puts more of their relationship because I think they're one of the most underrated relationships in the whole series. Like, they have such a lovely bond. Like, yeah, everybody talks about Percy and Grover and Percy and Annabeth, but nobody ever talks about the Grover and Annabeth relationship. I really want to see more of that in future seasons. If anybody from Disney is listening, I want to see it. I want to see it. It's so funny because all the people who are obviously coming to the underworld, Percy and them are just barging past them. And Grover says, this feels so wrong, like barging past. And Percy's like, don't worry. She goes, only suckers wait in line, basically. And yeah, first Sassy coming to the surface. Do you know what? It's such a huge part of his character. Like, I'm so happy, like, even in moments like that, they're able to put lines in that bring out that nature, I suppose. Anyway. And then finally the trio come face to face with Cheiron. And he just looks at them and he's like, you're not dead. And I think that's slightly different from the book. Because in the book, I think they tell him that they actually are dead. And I think Cheiron asks them, how did you die? And they said, we drowned in a bathtub or something. Something like that. I feel like I can remember that little string. I don't know if I'm 100% right about that, but I'm sure something different happens in the book. And Percy is just like, we're all dying to some extent. He's so adorable. And honestly, it's just things like that that make me laugh. Make me love him already 10 times more than I already do. And then they give him the drachmas and Cheiron blows the whistle, summoning Cerberus. So Cerberus is the three-headed dog that guards the underworld, I believe. And it starts chasing them, and it's so funny, it swallows Grover whole. And yeah, Percy's like, Grover! And him and Annabeth, for some reason, as they're running, get split up. And then eventually Annabeth jumps onto the side of Cerberus and she manages to calm him down by giving him a back rub and he falls asleep. And then out comes Grover, covered in absolute, I don't even know what you call it. It looks like it's slime, but it looks 10 times worse. It looks absolutely disgusting. Like, I don't know what they drenched Aryan in that day. It was like, it looked sticky and slimy. Uh, Yeah, honestly, like, I just gag just looking at it. I would like to, if I ever got the chance to interview Aryan, I would like to ask him, how many showers it took him to wash all that stuff out of his hair and off his body. It looked disgusting. I bet it was freezing cold as well then they applied it. Oh. Anyway, let's move on. And then Annabeth tells Grover to take Percy to the top of the cliff, using the winged shoes that Luke gave them. The wing shoes are very important in this episode. I like how they've incorporated them into the episode. And then eventually Cerberus wakes up and Annabeth is on the side and she manages to push herself onto the cliff and she asks the boys to help her up. Another cute little trio moment. I like this episode. There's a lot of good trio moments in there. And then she grabs the ball that she confiscated off Grover and she throws it. So Cerberus will go and fetch it. It's basically a big dog, essentially. So she remembers the tricks on how to tame a dog because apparently her dad used to have a dog when she was younger. And then in the distance, Percy can see Hades' palace, and Grover discovers that he's lost the pearl that would protect him, grant him safe passage out of the underworld, essentially. And then the episode moves on to another flashback. I think there's about 3 in this episode, but they're all equally important, so I'm not mad about it. And it's Sally and young Percy at the new school that she had registered him to. And the administrator tells her that Percy isn't registered at the school because one of the counselors from his previous school said that he drew a picture of a Pegasus. So if you don't know what Pegasus is, it's a horse with wings. And I like that it's a nice little node to Blackjack, little Easter egg that I discovered in episode 1 as well. I talked about it in, well, episode 1 of the show. It's episode 2 on my podcast. And what a lot of people don't know is Poseidon was actually also associated with being able to speak to horses, I think, something like that. So that's definitely a thread from the book that I hope that they pull in future seasons because Blackjack is he's Percy's companion throughout a lot of the book. So I hope that they get to. I'm interested to see like who they cast to voice that because Percy can obviously talk to Blackjack. I'm interested to see who they cast for that. Anyway, we're on a book tangent there. And then she tells the administrator that Percy has nowhere else to go, because like she's already withdrawn him for his old school and she knows for a fact that Percy can't stay with her, like it's not safe for him to stay with her. And then it's so sweet. Young Percy is played by Ezreal. Was it Ezreal? I'm not sure how you say his name, but he gets really excited when the administrator tells him that because he thinks, oh yeah, I can stay at home and I can be homeschooled instead. But Sally's like, no, like I'm not taking that for an answer. And young Percy looks so heartbroken, and I can't imagine like how he must be feeling. Like, he really must feel like he's being neglected because his mom just refuses to stay with him. Like she doesn't want to look after him. But I guess he doesn't understand the reason why she's doing this. So from a kid's perspective, it really broke my heart because I was like, oh my god, like this kid, he's probably thinking like, what have I ever done wrong that my mom doesn't want me? But that's not it at all, essentially. But yeah, my heart broke a little bit when I watched that part of the episode. I was like, oh, this series really does tug at my heartstrings. Like I'm a really emotional person, and I feel things like anything you could possibly imagine. Sometimes when I'm watching the scenes, I get choked up, and I'm like, whoa. But that's how you know it's a good series, right? When it can pull at your heartstrings. Let's just put it like that. And then the next scene is where the trio end up in Asphodel. So, if you don't know what Asphodel is, so Asphodel is a place where souls are bound by regret regarding the choices that they've made in this life or they didn't make, or basically. It's basically a place for people with regrets, essentially. And Grover brings up the Pearl issue again. He tells him, like, look, I've lost the pearl, like it's my fault. And Percy says to him, like, no, it's not. And he goes, even if it was, he goes, you're not getting left behind. And I really like that because it brings out Percy's fatal flaw again, which is the fact that he would do anything for someone he loves. And, it's just something I just love about him as a character. His selflessness is so attractive, is unbelievable. Yeah. This is why I just like my friends say you need a fictional man. I was like, yeah, I know. Percy Jackson's put my standards like up there. Many fictional men that I've read about over the years have put standards like up there, but anyway, and Percy gives him his pearl, like, and Annabeth tells them obviously where they are, which is Asphodel. And they hear Cerberus roaring in the background. So Percy and Grover make a run for it, but you can't see Annabeth anywhere. And eventually they stop, and Percy realizes that Annabeth isn't there, and he calls out to her like straight away, like where, like he's screaming her name because he doesn't know where she is. And they find her stuck with a root like tied around her ankle, and it's so sweet because Percy like immediately just gets down and tries to free her from it, but he can't because it's just way too strong. And then Grover says, it's some kind of regret. Like he can sense that she's regretting something. And when I was thinking about this, I'm not because the show doesn't implicitly tell you. I was thinking that it probably had something to do with Thalia, but I'm not sure necessarily. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's something that they talk about in the next season. I'm not sure. But yeah, and Percy's still like he's relentlessly trying to free her from it. And he really doesn't take no for an answer when it comes to somebody that he cares about. And yeah, again, another very attractive quality that he has. And then Annabeth says, you know what, you guys go. And she says, I'll use the pearl and I'll leave. And, Percy looks so worried. And, like, she goes, go, like, now, just go. And he watches her. She throws the pearl on the floor and she disappears. And it really shows that he didn't want to leave her. And, that's like another theme to the books. Like, they never want to be separated from each other. And that's why I think, like, okay, coming back to the books, like Titan's Curse, Percy's just grumpy throughout the book. And I'll talk about this more, like, when I do the episode for Titan's Curse. But he's just constantly pissed off because Annabeth's not there. And yeah, they're so sweet, honestly. Now, this next scene is one scene that is really pivotal, is where Grover and Percy enter Tartarus. So if you don't know what Tartarus is, it's a never-ending pit in the Underworld. So it's where Kronos and the other Titans were thrown after he was chopped into pieces by Zeus, basically to live in exile, essentially. And then what's really funny is like as Grover and Percy are talking, the shoes that Luke has given him just start flying up. And he says, Grover, like, where are you going? And Grover's like, it's not me. He goes, it's the shoes. Like, I'm not doing anything. And I think it's just a nice other hint as to who the lightning thief might be. And, Percy still tries to save him, and he manages to save him. And Grover kicks off the wing shoes, and they end up in Tartarus. And then just as they both land back, there's a metal thud in Percy's backpack. And he opens it and he realizes that it's the Master Bolt. But he says that, this isn't my backpack, this is the one that Ares gave me. And they realize that Ares and Hades have been working together. Which is different from the books, I think, because the Master Bolt isn't discovered in Percy's bag until they're in Hades' palace. But I think that change was sort of necessary for the storyline, for the series. So I'm not mad about it. A few things that they've changed are done on purpose because obviously it's going to make sense with the show, which is totally understandable at the end of the day. When you're adapting a book, you're adapting it, A lot of a book can be walking, talking, and let's say that doesn't translate so well on screen. So when you're adapting the story and you're changing it into a show, you've got to make the changes that match the show. So totally get that. And then, Grover tells him that Zeus is waiting for us to return this. And he sees like the look on Percy's face, like he's so close to saving his mum. And Grover can sense that. And he's like, you know what? Zeus can wait. He goes, let's go get your mum. And, their chemistry is just off the charts. And, it's so amazing that Grover cares just as much about what's important to Percy as he does about everything else. And it's so sweet. They're a really good set of friends. And then there's another flashback scene where it's Sally and young Percy at a cafe just before she's going to drop him to school. And she tells him, the school is going to be really good for you. And, he doesn't say anything. He just keeps looking down. And, eventually, like, he gets fed up and he asks her, like, why are you trying so hard to get rid of me? And he says something that really choked me up. He went, I would never do this to you. And like you could see like Sally getting choked up and she's like, okay, I'm gonna go pay, and she just runs out the scene. She looks so heartbroken and so conflicted. Like I think in her mind she knows it's the right thing to do, but she knows that she's hurting her son as well. And that can't be an easy choice for any mom, at the end of the day. I really do sympathize with her character because she's gone through hell and back for her son as well. And there's nothing like I can criticize about her being an incredible mom because she is. Now was the bit I was most excited for, which was the scene in Hades' palace. So Grover and Percy enter Hades' throne room. And it's the complete opposite for how he was. I remember him from the book because he was an absolute miserable grouch in the book. But this version of Hades, he's like, oh, he's so nice and warm and welcome because, come in. And he says, can I get you anything? And he starts listing all these drinks. And Percy's like, no, like, where's my mum? Sort of thing. And he goes, yeah, she's right this way. And he takes him, and she's like a gold statue. And Percy's face, like he literally just can't believe that she's standing right in front of him. And their relationship, like I said, is not only the backbone of the season, but Walker brings such a vulnerability to Percy, and it's exactly how I imagined the relationship from the books. And Hades says to him, like, I saved her from being crushed by the Minotaur, so that Percy would come and see him. And Percy says, look, I can't give you the Master Bolt because it's wrong, and I won't do it. But he goes, please just let my mum go. Now, Hades is looking at him so confused, like, what is this kid on about? Like, and he says, I don't want the Master Bolt. And Percy's so confused, he's like, what do you mean, like, you don't want it? And he's like, no, I just want my Helm of Darkness back. Back. Bad? Word vomit, guys. Word vomit. It's okay. I can't go a whole episode without making a word vomit moment, can I? And you know, Percy's like, well, what do you want? And he goes, I want my helm back. So if you don't know what happened at the Winter Solstice, so basically somebody stole Hades' helm to turn invisible so that they can go and steal Zeus's Master Bolt undetected, basically. So the lightning thief stole the helm as well. And then Percy like puts all the puzzle pieces together and he realizes that it was Kronos' plan to steal the Master Bolt. And he knows that the voice that's been coming through his dreams, he thought it was Hades, but actually it wasn't, it was Kronos. And then the shift in Hades' face, like when he realizes that Kronos could be coming back, he says, fine, give me the Master Bolt then. And Percy goes, I thought you didn't want it. And he goes, no, I didn't want it, but now you're telling me that this guy is coming back, my father's coming back, I'm going to need it to protect myself. And then Percy tells him, like, no, I'm not going to give you the Master Bolt. But he says that I'm going to go and find your helm. And then you're going to give me my mum back. And then he tells Grover to leave, to use the pearl to escape. So he waits for him to escape. And then he tells his mom to hold fast, which is the last thing she said to him, the last time she saw him before she was snatched by Hades, basically. Yeah, I love this whole mother and son relationship. Like, it means so much to me. But, not a lot of kids get that kind of unconditional love, and it's so nice that Disney are putting out such a positive image of a mom and son relationship. Like I really appreciate that. It's so nice to show young kids. And then comes, oh my God, this scene. I have been waiting for this scene because it is not in the books, and I'm so happy that the show has added this in. And it's where Poseidon and Sally Jackson meet again. Little flashback to the cafe. And it's so sweet because obviously to get the god's attention, you have to burn an offering. And she lights a match and she throws it inside a glass where she had a dessert in it. And it summons him, and you can just hear like the thunder and the rain rumbling. Now, like in my brain, I'm like, oh my God, it's Poseidon, it's Poseidon. Yeah, you know what? One thing I really hate about myself, a toxic trait that I really do have, is I tend to spoil things for myself because my brain overthinks it and then I eventually ruin the surprises for myself. And yeah, it was such a good moment. He just walks in and he stands next to her, and neither of them are looking at each other, but you can just feel that like that angst and that yearning and that forbidden love element of things. Oh, they're so good. They're so good. They are the original star-crossed lovers. Everybody talks about Romeo and Juliet, but nobody talks about Poseidon and Sally Jackson because he genuinely did love her so much. And she tells him like, look, this isn't fair, and she feels like she's failing, and and he said, no, you're not. Like he immediately reassures her. Honestly, their relationship is so good, so good. And then she tells him that I'm gonna take Percy to camp, and the first thing he does is ask her like, are you sure? And he already knows like deep down that she doesn't want to send Percy there, and he says like, why don't you want him to go to camp? And she goes, you don't want to know the reason. And he says, well, you have nobody else to say it to, so why not say it to me instead? And she says that she doesn't want Percy to be told who he is by his Greek family. She knows that he is so much better than that. And half his genes come from his mother, and he's bound to be much better than what the Greek family is. And Poseidon, he's just sort of like, he doesn't even disagree with her. I think he knows how messed up his family is, and he knows that his son, because of who his mother is, can be so much better than that. And Toby Stevens as Poseidon, oh my God, he blew me away in this scene, and I really hope we get to see more of him in future seasons. He's so good. He's so good. And Poseidon tells her, his mother raised him well, because obviously he didn't raise Percy. Whoever Percy is because of Sally, and he knows that as well, and he knows that he's a good kid just because of who his mom is. And she asks him, if you want to talk to him, you can, but as like people have read the books, and this is the thing, like it's so important to read the books because things make more sense when you read the books, and gods are not really supposed to have contact with their demigod children. And I just this scene is just one of my favorites for so many reasons, and I love that in the background you can hear the thunder as soon as she suggests that, which is Zeus warning Poseidon to stay away. Because I'm going to say something that if you haven't read the books, when I eventually get to that scene in the books, I'll talk more about it because I can't remember much of it. But the same thing will happen to Poseidon's family as what happened to Hades and his forbidden children, and obviously Poseidon doesn't want that. And it's another Easter egg from the books. Like, again, it's not explicitly stated why he has to stay away, but if you're a book reader, you're going to know why he has to stay away, essentially. And then that he says, like, when he's ready, Poseidon tells Sally, like, I'm going to be right there by his side. And I love this because it flashes back to Percy, Grover, and Annabeth. Annabeth is walking towards him, and he lands on a beach outside the cabin where his mom and his father met for the first time. And Annabeth helps him up. And honestly, the eye contact, like, is so intense. Like, how do 12-year-olds, this is what I don't understand, how do 12-year-olds look at each other like that? Like, I don't even think they know what they're doing, and it's so intense. And can somebody please remind them that it's supposed to be a slow burn? Like, these guys are selling it as if they're already like hopelessly in love with each other. He's staring at her like a lost puppy. It's cute, but at the same time, I'm like, wow, this is moving like really, really fast. And it's so sweet because he doesn't look away until she does, and he just follows her gaze, and they see Ares. And my favorite bit in this scene, the bit that gives me absolute life, is Grover is just standing like awkwardly behind them, like watching them stare at each other. Like nobody helped him off. Bless him. Oh, I love Grover. He's great. And then Percy sees Ares, and he uncaps Riptide. And then that's where the episode ends, which means that the Ares fight is going to be in the next episode, which I'm really looking forward to talking about. Adam Copeland as Ares, what a choice! What a choice! I talk more about him and his character when I reviewed episode 5 of the show. So go back and listen into that if you haven't heard that. So yeah, that's where the episode ends. So final thoughts on the episode. I do this for all the episodes. So I love the episode, and I think, like I always said, like 5 is one of my favorites, but I also think 7's one of my favorites as well because there's a lot that happens in there. They touch like a lot of areas in the book, And they've changed some things, which is fine. I can deal with that. And it's quite fast paced. But I like that it's fast paced, but then they also highlight on key things. Like they don't just let in like is empirical the right word? Like empirical details, like they don't let them slide through, which I really appreciate. I love that they showed more of Percy and young Percy and Sally's relationship because that's so important for the story. So I'm happy that they've put that in there as well. And obviously, Toby Stevens as Poseidon was the highlight of the episode. What an incredible casting choice. Honestly, he made the perfect Poseidon as well. And another thing that I forgot to mention as I was talking about the different seas like Asphodel, Tartarus, Hades' Palace is the sets. I think they were all on the volume stage, but they were stunning. Like honestly, like they're really book accurate as well, like I must say. But in particular, the set for Hades' Palace, oh my god, that set was gorgeous. Yeah. I like that they use a volume stage. I think that's amazing. Like the things that they're able to achieve on a volume stage. And the last and final thing that I'll say is that I love that there was more trio moments because they are the central aspect of this story. And I love seeing them because their chemistry is literally off the charts. So yeah, I love that there was more of the trio this time round. And yeah, that sort of brings me to the end of the review. So I think 5 and 7 are going to be my favorite episodes. I can't pick a favorite because I get too excited. As you can see, I'm obsessed with Percy Jackson, so I find it quite hard to pick. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening in. I hope you enjoyed the review. Let me know what your favorite scenes and stuff were. Like, I love to know like other people's things because there's sometimes people say things that I don't even think about, and I'm like, oh wow, that's actually a pretty cool idea. So yeah, thank you so much for listening in. In the next episode, I'm going to be reviewing the final episode of the show, which will probably be a little bit longer than the rest of the reviews because I feel like I'll have a lot more to talk about where they reveal who the lightning thief is. And yeah, really looking forward to that. And that will probably go up probably sometime next week, I would have thought. I'm going to try and get this episode up today on YouTube and on Spotify if I can, if I've got if I've got the time to put it up. Yeah, like I said, thank you so much for listening in. I really appreciate it. My episodes are now available to stream on Spotify and on YouTube. And yeah, just let me know what you guys think. Like, which one was your favorite episode? Like, feel free to like DM me on Instagram. It's at Aamsuntitledpodcast, or email me any questions at Aamsuntitledpodcast@gmail.com. Or on YouTube, leave comments under podcasts, I guess, and I'll try my best to answer them. Yeah, and I'll speak to you guys next week. Thank you so much again for listening in, and I hope you guys have a great week. All my love to everybody or anybody who needs a hug. And yeah, like I said, any questions, just let me know. I love you guys, and I'll speak to you next week. Bye.